What's up, guys? Max Finn, Michael Sanchez back with another episode of TokNews. I was off last week. You did a great job standing in. I was like, I'm just not going to be on the show anymore. We'll just let you do it, and it's more efficient and better, and there's no rambling from me. But I was speaking at Social Media Marketing World in San Diego, and we figured, hey, we don't want to skip a week and lose the routine, so let's just knock it out, and then I'll jump back in. So here I am. Although it does feel like it feels like Groundhog Day. I think every week we're doing this because the kind of feature story continues to be the same thing with kind of further developments. And so today we're really talking about three things. One, you probably guessed it, more talk about the TikTok ban. There's been kind of more developments there, more news, more things to talk about, more developments, like I said. And then we have Smart Performance Campaign, which we mentioned 2 episodes ago. Episode 2, we didn't get to it. So we'll talk about some of the developments there. And then we're going to wrap with not specific to TikTok, but still has implication on TikTok and basically all marketing and just life in general is the release of ChatGPT 4, which happened on Tuesday to paid users. So we'll talk about that, what the developments look like there, some of the crazy stuff that I've seen come out of it already, and what that means for you, your business, your marketing, and just your life in general, because I think this is a pretty transformational technology, and it's going to get more and more transformational. So, without further ado, let's dive in here. Let's just start with the elephant in the room, the big topic we cover every single week. It seems like we could probably just change the name of the episode, the show, to just TikTok ban or not ban.
Right.
We could do a whole
Ban or
mini
not to
series
ban.
just on that, and I think it would be pretty popular. But we'll start there. So I know we were talking pre-show, just kind of sharing some thoughts. Let's just dive in where you're at with that right now.
Yeah, so I mean, right now it's March 17th. The House approved a bill allowing the president the authority to ban TikTok outright. Before that happens, obviously they're maybe trying to negotiate, or in my opinion, they're kind of trying to do a little bit of a bullying tactic to basically have TikTok divest from the Chinese company or the Chinese parent company ByteDance. So basically means sell TikTok as itself to a US company or face the possibility of getting banned or heavily regulated or something like that. Very, very interesting. I know we talked about this back in 2020. Trump tried to do our former president Trump tried to do the same thing. He didn't have as much power in terms of being able to do that on himself or the administration themselves, but this time it looks like that it's a little bit different. Biden does have the power to do so. So it's been a little bit interesting to seeing how it developed. And I don't know, maybe we could talk a little bit about like where this came from. I don't think most people even know like where did this idea start coming from? Obviously it's a Chinese company and people feel a certain way. If you're American, maybe you just kind of want to stay away from the Chinese economy and the government. But I don't think people really understand where these like ideas came from all of a sudden, because it seems like last year it's very full steam ahead of
Yep.
like TikTok, ban, 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 and coincidentally, all those very harsh views on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube from Congress just kind of went away all of a sudden, which I think is kind of an interesting topic to discuss. Maybe in relation to like what does this mean for the ban and what's going to happen, but how does this even get started in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, so why don't we were talking before about some of the kind of origins there. Why don't you start there and we can just build on it.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. One of the things that I really loved and still love about TikTok, not so much the actual app itself, but what it brought to the marketplace, is that it forced change. It forced these big social media platforms, aka Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube. It forced them to change and to do something different, whether it's rewarding creators, giving more visibility, completely, revamping the way that we consume content in terms of like, algorithmic distribution channels like that. But that being said, I don't think people really realize that back in, I think it was 2020, 2021, Meta went on this very quiet and now publicly released documentation of hiring a third party company called Target Victory
Yep.
to plant negative ideas and news articles to specifically target politicians. It gets a little bit crazy. We don't have to get in the weeds. You can look this up, but they basically created these campaigns, this third party company, for and on behalf of Meta to say certain things that they knew very specific politicians would look at and see. Apparently, it went so far as actually getting the printed like news articles and placing them in places in the waiting room of different like congressional hearings, right in the seats next to the people that would obviously read this, and they have the power in Congress to start doing certain things, or start talking about this a little bit, which I think two different ways. One, it is brilliant tactics of Meta to do that, obviously. But I also think on the other side, it's kind of pathetic that, like, instead of trying to compete and trying to do it, maybe the right way and develop a better product or develop better services, they instead defaulted to this, this like, I don't know, this planting a story scheme. I don't think most
Well,
people
they're
will know that, but you can. If
yeah.
it's public, you can go Google this right now. It's not
Oh
this
yeah.
like conspiracy theory. It's been shown. It's been demonstrated. They came out and admitted to it. I don't know. I just think it's really, it's really shitty, And just real quick, I don't want to sound like a TikTok stan. Obviously, I have invested interest in TikTok succeeding. I also have invested interest in all the other platforms, but I think it's very interesting that a lot of these stories that have come out, they haven't been proven to be true. They're not things that any other company's not doing themselves. I know a lot of people tout the like terms of service on the App Store. It's not that long, the things that they capture. If you go to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, they're like three scrolls longer in terms of like the data they collect. I just think it's really interesting that they're, again, I know I'm going to sound like a TikTok stan, but they're just kind of bad lies for the most part. It's very, very self evident if you do a mild amount of research. We're like, that doesn't actually make sense to what's being said over here. But yeah, I thought it would be just kind of interesting to see where this came from and explore that idea of like, their competition just coincidentally being the ones behind this entire thing.
Yeah, and I mean, it went even further than that too. I believe it was, I think it was the same company. It was also doing a lot of like fake trend injuries and deaths. Like a
Mm.
lot of, because there was this period of time where it was like, I feel like every single day there was a new article about TikTok trend leads to kids killing themselves, or leads to kids injuring themselves, or leads to kids doing something insane. It was just like a parent's worst nightmare every day for the news. That
Mm.
like TikTok, 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 trend bad. There was things like kid holds breath and dies, which is not even possible to hold your breath and kill you. But like regardless, like there was all these stories, and that was also another big PR company. Now, sure, are there some trends out there that are just real and like dangerous and stupid? Yes, of course. But it was a PR effort from Meta to make TikTok seem really, really dangerous and make parents, because that's again brilliant on Meta's part. Whoever was on the Meta's leadership team that hired this PR company and like worked with them in the angles in the PR company to say like, how do we build momentum behind a ban? Let's get parents really, really scared and angry. And parents are then going to write their congressman. They're going to, contact their local politician. They're going to do things to push for it. Say something needs to happen. Like this is danger to my kids. And so this has kind of been this constant reoccurring theme of just, you know, TikTok is uniquely dangerous and unique in all these other cases in terms of the data being shared, unique in terms of the privacy infringements, unique in terms of the addictiveness. And we've said this multiple times on the show and multiple times on, for the last probably year or so. I frankly like you either need to agree with the underlying principle that like social media apps are bad in aggregate, meaning they are addictive, they are bad for kids' development, that they are being used as spy tools, they are being used by tools of the government, or not. I think my big problem with this whole thing, and this not being like a TikTok fan person, this is just being a person that like believes in you need to have a opinion and stick to it, and it needs to be universal, is you can't pick and choose. You can't say
Mm-hmm.
like, I was kind of mad at Meta like a year or 2 years ago when they were doing all this Cambridge Analytica stuff and everything here, but now like it's okay because they're an American company. It's really what it comes down to is it's okay for Meta and Twitter and YouTube and every other social media app out there, Snapchat, to be used by our government in the same capacity that China uses TikTok. It's okay for these apps to suck hours of the day out of my kids' time and cause them to do stupid stuff and like reduce their ability to socialize and have friends because they're American companies. But it's not okay
Mm-hmm.
for TikTok because it's a Chinese company. That's really what it comes down to. And I'm totally fine with that. But at least be transparent. Like these people that have this argument, like TikTok needs to be banned because of this and this, that can't be your argument. Your argument needs to be TikTok needs to be banned because it is this, this, and this, and we don't control it. That's really the argument. And if that's your argument, that's fine. And I'm totally cool with that. But at least be like consistent and stay that thing. 'Cause that's the only thing that's different between TikTok and every other app out there. They're all uniquely
Yeah.
addictive. They're all uniquely bad. They're all like the Twitter files showed this. The Twitter files came out and show that the Biden administration and the Trump administration, every administration has direct connections with executives there on policy, and was asking them to ban people, was asking them to moderate people, was showing kind of just these kind of branching graphs showing where, misinformation was coming from at the user level, who was spreading information and saying, hey, you probably should silence this. So like we do it every day. And yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about this numerous times. Like, you're either for, social media at an aggregate level, like this is bad and we need to kind of shut it all down, or just this is the way our world works right now. We're going to have social media apps. They're going to be bad for kids. They're going to be used as spy tools. We're okay with it with the Patriot Act. We're okay with it with our, cell phones being tracked. Like, but that's, yeah, it's very frustrating. I don't like when people aren't consistent with their viewpoints.
Yeah, I think I do actually side with the opinion of the CEO of TikTok, where he said banning TikTok is not going to actually address your security concerns, because in reality, if the fear is that it's coming from China and China's going through the data and influencing, etc., then they should just do an outright China ban in general,
Yeah.
like the same way that India did. Everybody says or uses like TikTok's ban in India, where it's like they had war skirmishes on their border, and that did seem to be a real legitimate threat, but they banned all Chinese companies and like everything basically from China. I mean, there's some that still are able to circumnavigate it. But I think there was like 86 apps or websites that were banned in India. So to me, I'm like, okay, if that's the case, let's at least be consistent with like your morality or your sense of
Yeah.
like fear, where it's like just bound them all outright. Which maybe is something we could talk about too. Is like I don't. Well, I'll say in two ways. One, I don't think Mark Zuckerberg made a smart decision. If TikTok's banned, I think his thought process is that we're going to go back to Facebook and Instagram, but I don't really think that's going to be the case. I think if anybody did scoop up all these people, it's probably going to be YouTube Shorts
Yeah.
more than like Instagram and Facebook. So I feel like maybe for him, it's just like, ah, shit, we didn't really do much here. But on the secondary side, I'm wondering what the ramifications are of if this ban does go through, what it means for like the American US country, like, companies and brands and stuff like that, because I'm going to guess that China is not going to like this and that they're going to also retaliate the same way that we would probably do it or any other country would logically do that. But I think in the secondary realm of not just directly with China, where I think this is like sends a broadcast message to every other country that, hey, maybe you should also scrutinize foreign apps and tech companies the same way we did. AKA, if I'm an Australian, I might be looking at Facebook and be like, hey, well, Facebook can be, whatever with the US government. Maybe we should also limit Facebook's reach now. And, kind of have this domino effect. Because if you're this signal now saying like, only the country who owns that app or company or that tech company should have access to this type of data, I think every other country could take a step back and say, hey, you're right. We want to
Yeah.
do what you did. Because I seen this amazing Twitter post. This guy left a comment. He said the way Americans view TikTok is the same way that the rest of the world views all of America's tech companies and how you collect our data. And I just took a step back and I was like, I've never thought about that. Yeah, because like we kind of dominate the influence on the app space and tech space. So yeah, I don't know.
It's
Maybe
so
we can
true.
kind of hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I mean, it's so true. It's like, and it's hard to look at the world this way because, as Americans and as, I mean, it's like we get to live this unique life where we're so privileged living in this country, and I hate using that word, but it's reality. It's like we live in the superpower, and everybody else is kind of secondary to us on the global stage. We have the reserve currency, we control innovation, we control capitalism, like the banking
Mm-hmm.
system, and so like we basically get to play by a different set of rules, and we're okay with that because we're Americans and everyone's playing by our rules. And like
Mm.
that's again goes back to the issue I just talked about before. It's like consistency. We have illogical thinking here, where we're okay with mass surveillance and spying and using these apps as Trojan horses and everything when it's on other people to support America's interest. But as soon as it's the exact same thing happening by another country, it's all of a sudden incredibly wrong and incredibly dangerous, and we can't accept it. Um, so I think the talking about the ramifications here, I think this is also what there's two things I think most people aren't thinking about. One is precedent, and this is a big problem most people have, which is especially on the left and on the right. They want things to happen when it happening now is going to help further their agenda. But they never really think about, okay, if I do this dramatic thing, whether it's a new law or some new, way you view an angle or view a story or position you take or argument you make, that might be convenient to you now. But if you lose power, now the other party can use that exact same argument or law or precedent for the other side's agenda. And so I think you look at like the Patriot Act, for example. Everyone was all on board with this post 9/11 because
Mhm.
everyone was in fear. And our government told us, like, we need this because we need to find terrorists. Like, you have nothing to worry about. We're not going to look at your stuff. We're not going to spy on you. We're using this new law to essentially monitor just for terrorists. And we all know how that played out, right? It basically turned into PRISM, all this stuff where it was just, Snowden, like mass surveillance where our webcams were being turned on and our text messages were being read and our emails were being read and our phone calls were being listened to, all Americans. And so I think with this new thing, it's like giving the executive branch, and I don't want to make this a political show, but like we have three branches of government for a reason. And like the executive branch in the Constitution, like our founding fathers gave it very little actual power. Like the executive branch in the Constitution is a very small section, right? We shouldn't be giving any president more power. I don't care whether it was Trump or Biden or Obama or Clinton or Bush. Like we should be limiting how much power one person and one branch of government has. And I think giving the executive branch kind of unilateral power to ban entire companies is pretty terrifying, because we don't know who's going to be in power in a few years, in 10 years from now, 20 years
Mhm.
from now. Like that could be another, it could be a crazy person. And they just say, well, I'm just going to start banning companies I don't like for whatever reason. So I think that's one thing to think about is like, it might sound good now because we're using it for this one specific case that everyone's on board with. But once you put that, once the genie comes out of the bottle there, you can't put it back in. And then the other side of it is, do you have actually, before I do that, do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I think one of the downfalls I think we're seeing right now is that our most of our politicians are old. They don't
Mm-hmm.
understand tech. I mean, we see these congressional hearings where they're asking Mark Zuckerberg if Google can track him on maps, and it's like, what are you even talking about? I'm not even the same company, you know? Like, I think it's scary and dangerous because the people in charge, in my opinion, don't understand tech. I don't think they fully understand how rapidly fast the geopolitics of tech and information and data and influence has changed in just the last couple of decades, let alone Biden being however old he is. And obviously they have advisors and they have people that are younger, but I don't think, like, to your point, that they're really understanding, like, this isn't just like an oil ban that's like an industry, like this is fast moving. This is like quick. I mean, we're going to talk about ChatGPT. Like even AI and ChatGPT, they're like so slow in terms of regulations and
Yep.
it's like, dude, we don't have 10 years of debate about this. Like you have weeks and months and years, or not years, for the most part. But I don't think the people who are making decisions in the tech space in our government fully understand what the ramifications and the butterfly effect are going to be 5, 10, 15 years from now. Like I was saying earlier, like, okay, yeah, maybe the European nations are just like, hey, that's a great idea you just said. I know we're allies, but we don't like you having our stuff either. So all of your influence and apps that you have right now, we're going to need them to stop. Like they need to stop doing
Yeah.
this. Where now, we took down TikTok, but we simultaneously shot our foot in every single direction of like, well, there goes Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, well, Spotify, Swedish, but all these other things all of a sudden, especially like OpenAI. This is a great reason for all these countries to be like, wait, you're collecting all the data on the internet and processing it? No, 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 no. We don't like this right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then I guess the final point on this, and then we can dive into some smart performance campaigns and ChatGPT stuff. Is the blowback, right? And we talked before we went on the show about like if I'm Tim Cook, if I'm Howard Schultz, if I'm Bob Iger, if I'm these big CEOs that have massive business in China, both from a consumer standpoint in terms of consumer buying stuff and also production
Mhm.
capacity, I am definitely on back channels right now with the administration saying like, hey, can we like, listen, I support you. I think this is, I think TikTok's bad. I think we should ban it. But if we do that, let's think this through of how that impacts American companies that have big dependency on China, right? Like I think I talked on a few episodes ago about Starbucks by 2025, I believe, China is going to be their biggest market. It's going to be bigger than the US in terms of just overall revenue, income, customer base. And so you have to know that if we do this, if we ban the TikTok app, the next day probably the CCP is saying they're creating a list of here's all the big American companies in China that are making stuff and selling stuff. We're gonna make it really bad for them. We're gonna nationalize all the Starbucks. We're gonna make them China Bucks, and we're gonna turn them into our own brand. We're gonna take all the coffee beans that we've been making for you. We're gonna take, oh, Disney, you have all this stuff over here. We're gonna do something with that. Apple, you haven't moved fast enough to move to Taiwan or other places. We're gonna take all of your Foxconn factories and we're just gonna make our own phones with them. Like we're gonna take, any intellectual property you have over here, we're just gonna take it and confiscate it. I think like if we're just looking at this purely from a like kind of the seesaw, right? Like how much goes up, how much goes down, like how much do we have to gain the net benefit of banning TikTok versus how much do we have to lose? And to your point earlier, TikTok is not the only Chinese company operating in America. It's not the only way that China is getting data on Americans, right? Again, they flew a balloon over the country for a week. We let it happen, right? I'm sure there's lots of other balloons up there spying on us around our nuclear bases. Like they have spies. Like I think the net gain from banning TikTok, even if you support it, even if you're like, I think it's still bad, which is totally fine, the net gain for America is minuscule. It might make people feel better. It might feel like a political victory, which is one thing. But the actual net gain in terms of how much is going to decrease the amount of information China gets from Americans, I think is almost next to zero. Whereas the loss potential of Starbucks losing all of its stores, where Apple loses all of its production capacity. Like you might feel pretty good about it. Like, yeah, we banned TikTok until it's Christmas time and you want that new iPhone and it costs $4,000 because Apple can't make enough of them and the prices of everything went up and you can't get, Starbucks is faltering and you can't get your Starbucks, they have to close down because they lost 25% or 30% of their income. Like I think there's not just a few companies. There's, McDonald's, there's Yum Brands, there's, Coke, there's all these mega companies that have huge footprints in China. And they're all going to be impacted. Like, I don't think it's going to be a one-to-one where it's like China's going to go after, like, you took down one app, we're going to take one app. I think it's like you take down TikTok, we're going to just crush a bunch of your big companies.
Yeah, two quick things too to note is that I don't even think it's about the companies there, but like China has a lot of investments in our tech companies in our tech space where if the concern is, well, I guess two things. One, if the concern is data, then you should just ban all of them or force them all to sell their
Yep.
stocks, whatever it is, like a few of them that I can list. I'm looking at one of my posts right now from August 6th, 2020. And I think a lot has changed and grown, but Discord, Chinese investors, Snapchat, Universal Music record label, Discord, like everybody uses Discord. Supercell is like all the mobile apps like Clash of Clans, Brawl Stars, Clash Royale. Activision, which is like one of the biggest gaming conglomerates, Epic Games, like Fortnite, Gears of War, Blizzard, which is another big gaming conglomerate, Riot Games, which is League of Legends, which I think is like one of the top ones, Tesla, Ubisoft, Glue Mobile, like there's so many of our tech companies,
Yep.
and that's just tech companies that's publicly disclosed, is owned by Chinese investors. Where I can imagine all of them all of a sudden are going to get pressure from the CCP of like, hey, sell all of your stuff and get rid of it, or just we're going to take it from you. And then now all of a sudden we see this kind of like ripple effect. The second thing I do want to say though is personally, I do think that TikTok should be regulated. I think they should be forced to sell or to IPO or to do some kind of like divestment of some sort. I do think it's unfair that China can come over here and play and we can't really go over there and play, at least in the
Yep.
tech space. So to make it very clear, I'm not like pro China over America. I do think, and I've stated this since I think 2020 when it was first talked about, like they should. It's not fair that we can't compete in their tech space game, but they can compete with ours. It does make sense, but what I try to say also is like, maybe I'm using it as a scapegoat here, but like, what kind of government or what kind of country do we want to be? Do we want to follow the footsteps of what we ridicule others for and be like, well, they do it, we do it? I don't feel that's like a game that we kind of want to play where it's like, where their government controls more. So maybe we should let our government control more. Where I
Yep.
feel like take a step back and it's like, do you want it to be more like the CCP or do you want it to be more of like what we, hopefully as an Americans or, in the West regard as like democracy and the republic and having a say in things versus just being like, I'm scared, therefore give them more control. It's like V for Vendetta in a lot of ways. Like
It is.
something happened and now it's like, give me more power, give me more consolidation. It's a little scary. And obviously I might personally be inflating it a little bit from, just banning an app versus, government control. But I feel like what you were saying earlier, like there's a lot of little things that I don't think you're realizing, like the Patriot Act, where it's like, oh, that was good until years later we realize like, oh shit, you're doing what? Like it's kind of scary. Like it's a little bit, I don't know, a little not nerve wracking right now, but I think it sets a precedent for the future. We might look back from 20 years from now and be like, oh, that was not a good idea what we did there.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, just to reiterate what you were saying, like, yeah, neither of us are pro China or CCP here. So to make that very clear, like, I agree with you 100%. I think it should be at a very minimum, it should have been a no brainer to just totally silo off servers, give access to auditors. Like, there was a lot of things that they could do, and then I think going further, spinning it off as a its own public company or selling
Well, real
it
quick, the
to
thing
another
is,
company.
they did do that. The
Yeah,
servers are
but they didn't do it
separate
well enough.
in
Yeah, but it was
Oracle.
like, yeah, they tried. Like, I think it's like in Texas, there was like something like the Texas rule,
Yeah,
or they did
Project
something.
Texas.
Yeah. But yeah, like whatever they need to do to make that even more accommodating, because obviously it wasn't good enough for our government. But like whatever the things our government asked for, like extra, they should have done. Like, just do it. It's if your argument is like that, China saying we don't spy on it, we don't need it, like then it should be no issue to do whatever our government's asking. But yeah, it's not
I
going to
do
end.
feel
I
a
don't
little
think the
sad for
story.
I do feel a little sad for TikTok, the company. I think their problem was that they just built it in China. I think like if this was any other country, then TikTok would probably just supersede everything that we have right now. I know the original owner and creator of TikTok came to America, went to college, I think at Berkeley and UC Davis. Don't quote me on that one, but I know they came to college here. They wrote their thesis papers, and they went back to China, and they ended up creating it. Same with the creator Shein, which is also like a Chinese like real time
Fast
shopping
fashion.
network, I guess. Yeah, fast fashion. There we go. Yeah, but it's just interesting seeing these people that were influenced by America go back, try to build something in their own native country, and then all of a sudden this is the reaction. Which I think really quickly, I didn't even think about that to right now. Like, might send a slightly dangerous signal to immigrants that come from other countries to learn and to cultivate their skill sets and to get higher education in America that want to go back, like a lot of Indians are doing right now from India. They come here and they're like, why are we building these things and building up the American economy? I want to go back to India and build our own stuff, and especially in the tech space. I would be a little tiny bit cautious of other foreign immigrants coming over
Yeah.
here and be like, well, I don't want to go build this super thing over here and then 10 years from now we're beefing with India and then I get my stuff kicked out of the country because some other things. So I don't know. I feel a little bit bad for TikTok as a company as itself of, you know, separate from China's government. It's just like, I can't imagine being the owner right now. Just like, dude, what the fuck? Like, I just wanted to create a cool app. Like now I'm
Yeah.
stuck in some stupid geopolitical
Geopolitical
war with
tension. Yeah. It's crazy.
can you imagine
It's
you
crazy.
just started something and then now you're just like, dude, I'm going to like all these government hearings and everybody hates me. I'm just like, I just wanted to create a better AI system. Like shit, I didn't know the government was going to hate
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, it's definitely not what he was thinking when I think when it all got started. But unfortunately, that's where we're at now. So let's go on to SPC Smart Performance, and then we'll wrap with GPT-4. So this is we don't spend a ton of time on this, but it's just I wanted to share. I think like
Mm.
basically high level. If you're not familiar with what Smart Performance Campaign is, it's a new campaign feature that I believe now should be general access. It should be rolled out to everybody or just about everybody. They had rolled it out to a lot of people in the last few weeks. And essentially what it allows you to do at the campaign level is kind of like have you enable like a CBO campaign. You have a little toggle there, and it essentially just takes the entire like ad group part of it, the targeting, out of your hands and puts it in TikTok's algorithm. And so, whereas before you have to pick like who do I target, what interest do I use, what hashtag do I use, what bid do I set, all these variables that you would have to come up with on your own and create lots of ad groups to test them. You basically just tell TikTok like what country do I want to run in, what language do I want to exclude any audiences or like sub 18-year-old users. That's it. set a budget, and then basically you're just putting in a ton of creative. So it's up to 30 pieces of creative you can upload in there. You can do both Spark or custom identity, and then 5 pieces of copy for the description, dynamic call to actions, and then TikTok basically just uses all of your historical data to basically deliver the right ad to the right person with the right bid, with the right creative combination, and takes all that out of your hands. It's doing really well for us across a lot of our accounts. I think it's something, if you're brand new to TikTok, I probably wouldn't run it because it relies on historical data to find who the right person is. So if you have no spend, no data, it's not going to work great for you. But if you're running an account you've run for a few months, you have $50, $100,000 in spend, these are conversions, definitely something I would test. And I really think this is probably the first time I've seen something, because I know Meta's rolled out a few of these things over the years. That's been hit or miss. Some other platforms have, although some new stuff from Meta is looking pretty promising on a similar type of features. It's now kind of the first time I've seen this type of stuff where it's the platform saying, let us handle stuff for you, where it's actually beating good media buyers who do their own targeting consistently, which I think is really, really impressive. And I think it's a turning point now. And this will go nicely into GPT-4 talk, where, and I just shot a video actually last night about this. I think media buying, like traditional, the way most people view media buying right now, is going to be completely obsolete in the next few years.
Mm.
Especially, I think it's probably even shorter if you're a group, this kind of group. And I just realized my camera just froze on my end. That actually happened. It's weird. It's I gotta look at my eCam. It's happened yesterday on another
Now we
video
switch
set.
sides.
Yeah, I'm just switching. And it's always funny when it does that. I'm going to switch you. I'm going to move me back to the left. There we go. Oh no, there's 3 of me. I just clicked the wrong one there.
That's funny though.
Yeah, there's no way to switch sides. So we're going to be stuck. Actually, I can move you to the right. Look at that. We're back on the right side of it. Although now it's like I'm down in the bottom left, and it's whatever. And like maybe it's my HDMI cord or something. But yeah, so you have like these two groups of media buyers, right? Where you have like group A over here, and this group essentially relies on everyone else to give them the content. They rely on the brand for the creative, they rely on the copywriter for the copy, they rely on the landing page from somebody else, and essentially they're just taking everybody else's stuff and then just pushing buttons of like, okay, just create this campaign, create this ad group, target this interest, put these images and videos and creative in there and copy in there and then run it. And I monitor it and I'll pause things and start things. Like that person is quickly going to be obsolete. Like I think they're obsolete in the next
Mm.
few months, maybe the next year. This group over here has a little longer of lifespan where they're actually making creative, they're actually writing copy, they're actually coming up with unique angles, they're actually coming up with like, how do I make the landing page better? How do I help them with AOV, LTV so I can pay more on the CPA? But like this group over here, like you're about to be beat by the platforms because they're going to do it better than you. They're going to be able to pick the better audience. They're going to be able to pick the better bid. They're able to make modifications and tweaks and alterations in real time off of real data. They don't have emotions, which is one of the media buyers' biggest weaknesses, is they don't use logic. A lot of times they use emotions of like, oh, this ad's kind of underperforming, but if it gets one more sale to be profitable, I'm gonna let it run for another $50 to spend, another $100 to spend. A lot of media buyers who are watching this have probably gone through that. And you end up then getting, $50 more, $50 more. All of a sudden you've lost $200 today, $500 today because you just didn't go with the data and just pause it. AI doesn't have that problem. These algorithms don't have that problem. They just operate based on data. So yeah, I think it's cool to see this happening. It's I think a net benefit for our community because it allows like true marketers and real business owners to actually focus on like things that are actually important, which is like creating really amazing products, creating really amazing customer experiences, focusing on maximizing your back end numbers, focusing on, the creative and the ideas and the angles. Like those are things that we should be focusing on. The other stuff, like having that be automated and be better is going to be a net win for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's my personal opinion that I think a lot of times in the last like 5 or 10 years, a lot of what made a media buyer so good in a lot of ways was like knowing these little tricks and these little hacks because
Yep.
like the platform itself was kind of shit. So it's like duplicating ad sets. Like that was just so weird that people didn't understand or how to scale in a certain way. So you don't go from $10 to $10 million all of a sudden, things just get destroyed. I think those subtle things that were more of an issue with the tech and like the interface and the UI and UX was like the best or most beneficial thing, in my opinion, to a lot of media buyers. Where now the systems are getting more sophisticated, they're getting more intelligent, they're doing things that's like probably most media buyers didn't even think about. Was like, oh shit, That's actually a brilliant strategy. I never thought about
Yep.
targeting that way. Where, yeah, I would imagine if there's 10,000 media buyers and 5,000 of them, their bread and butter was doing little tricks, and if those tricks just got eliminated, it's like, well, shit. Now I got to compete on the real stuff like copy, the creatives, the landing pages, the funnel, the offer. But then again, you know, you use ChatGPT or some AI system, and then it's like, well, damn, like I didn't have to do any of that because ChatGPT and Midjourney just built everything. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. You know, hopefully, you know, jobs aren't eliminated and new things are replacing it. So maybe before you were doing certain tweaking of you know, the UIs or whatever, like the systems, now your new job could be like prompt engineering or creating, you know, automation systems. Now that it's like, okay, I could technically run 15,000 ads flawlessly and track them all because of the AI system, but now I monitor the AI system and, you know, see what the data outputs or whatever. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm very, very curious what's going to happen in the next couple of years. So I'm already seeing
Yeah.
people kind of quietly behind the scenes crumbling a little bit of like, hey, I don't really have anything different to offer my clients that they can't do themselves. And I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you,
Yeah,
bro. That's going
it's
to
gonna
be.
be wild. I mean, let's wrap with that. Let's go into it's a kind of a good segue into the new version of ChatGPT. You know, I've been a fan. I've been following it kind of closely. I've been playing around with a lot of the tools, but I also I've been more, I think, I don't know, hesitant or resistant is the right word, but I've been more patient about kind of going on it because, you know, I think there's always these waves where there's like early on with new technologies, people get like really overhyped, like happened with crypto, right? Where it's
Mm-hmm.
like there's just so much excitement, people kind of don't look at things objectively and think it's going to change the world like tomorrow and go all in and can get crushed by like stopping what you're doing that's working, kind of going all in on this new thing.
Mm-hmm.
So last year or so, I've kind of had that lens where I'm like, let me play around with it, let me get familiar with it. I think it's going to be huge, but like still be cautious about it. The newer stuff that I'm seeing, I'm like more convinced now than ever. That, like this is not this is different than like Web3 or crypto. Like this is going
Yeah.
to dramatically alter the way we live our lives and the way we work and the way we do just about everything. Especially some of the stuff I saw. I went to when I was at Social Media Marketing World, Jasper had a little thing that I got invited to last minute. So I was able to talk to their kind of leadership and a few people there, and then my buddy Sean, who's helped them with a lot of their stuff internally, is really big into AI and is been building like really cool prompts for some very very big names in our industry. And he was showing me some of the stuff that he's building. He's building like massive sequences, like 30, 40, 60 prompt sequences that kind of flow back into each other and kind of build on each other, like really crazy stuff. And he built one that actually can write an entire book. And he showed me like a few pages from the book, and it was like wild. I mean, it wasn't Stephen King, but it was a really good book. Like if you just show me that pages and said like, what do you think about it? I'd be like, it's a good author, good book. And the entire thing was written by GPT-4. And so yeah, I mean, I'm excited for it. I'm also you know, concerned of, I think in the past, whenever there's things, whether it was the printing press or whether it was, you know, Henry Ford with kind of the assembly line and the automobile and the internet and these different innovations that like totally destroyed entire sectors of the economy and job markets, it happened relatively slowly in today's time frames. So like people had time to somewhat adjust and learn new skills. I think what's going to happen now is like this is going to happen so fast and blindside a lot of people, that I don't know how fast some people are going to be able to adapt. And I've even heard rumors, and again, this is just a rumor that I've heard, that like Altman and OpenAI and them, like they technically have like GPT-5 and like much more advanced stuff that they haven't actually rolled out because it's so crazy advanced that like it would just transform everything. And they're actually internally working on, like they have whole departments working on like UBI and different like economic models to support like, which is universal basic income, because they like know how transformative this is going to be for the job markets. Again, rumor, but I also wouldn't put it past them. That would seem like something like a smart person that has a technology that's going to be highly scrutinized, probably by the government at some point, would be doing stuff like that. But yeah, that's my ramble on it. Curious your thoughts on the new version and what you think about it.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting, just like you said, how transformative it is. I think one thing that I had that all these other emerging sectors are like kind of failing at to some extent, it's not really asking you to do anything different. It's not asking you to adopt a new habit or a new hobby or new tech or whatever. It's just like, hey, you got a computer, right? You have a question, right? Throw it in. You're
Yep.
familiar with Google, right? All right. It's like all that, but faster and better and smarter. I think it's like the barrier to entry to learn and to understand it and to get good at it is it's really not that hard anymore. Even last night, I was messing with Midjourney. For people who don't know what Midjourney is, it's like an image creator. Basically, you put in certain keywords and it'll create it. So you put like Mark Zuckerberg with long hair, and it'll like do an amazing job. But Midjourney version 5 came out, and before that, I was putting in these giant, long, descriptive prompts, like 3 paragraphs long, to get a really good output. Last night, I was with my daughter, and I just put in French bulldog as a superhero because she loves like the Marvel movies, and it gave me really, really good images. And,
They look
and my
sick.
point to this, yeah, like we were going through all of them, and I was like, this is actually kind of cool. Like it actually looks great. But my point is, it doesn't even require now, and I'm sure it's gonna get even better. It doesn't even require, you know, a certain level of skill set, or it's getting smaller and smaller where you might have to put 30 paragraphs super descriptive, and now it's just something as simple as like write me a thesis for my paper in the sounding of XYZ, and then she's going to create this insane output. So yeah, I think it's definitely transformative. I'm very, very, very curious to see how this is going to go. I'm trying to work on something right now, putting ChatGPT into Siri on my phone as through a shortcut, because Siri kind of fucking sucks. I can only imagine ChatGPT merges with mobile devices, because once it really hits mobile devices, I think that's when we're going to see this, hockey stick inflection point, because ChatGPT, you can do it on your phone, but it's not as good as on the
Yeah.
computer, like when you're actually on there. I can see when it merges with this. Then your audio, you can ask, Siri or Alexa, hey, Alexa, give me the best recipe and details for, chicken tikka masala. And then it's going to tell you verbatim what to do, Another cool thing that ChatGPT did in the demonstration was you could take a picture of the ingredients in your refrigerator, like not like crazy good. Just go to your refrigerator, open the door, take a photo, and you can ask it off that photo. You can say something like, based off the ingredients that you see in this photo, give me 3 recipes for my dinner tonight. And it
It's
literally
insane.
identifies the object and tells you, where I'm like, that's kind of incredible. Like imagine I take a picture of you, like give this guy a whole new fashion outfit for the Grammys and link me to the products and purchase them ahead of time. Like, you know what I mean? You don't even have to think anymore. It's insane. I know we're obviously kind of like giving some like dreamy like scenarios, but I don't think that's far away from a year or two from now that actually coming out, rolling out. And if it hits the mobile, like really being mass adopted almost, instantaneously.
Yeah, my gut is that either the next iPhone or the following iPhone, that is a flagship major feature that they roll out, kind of Siri 2.0, where it's a kind of a Jarvis level AI assistant on your phone that actually gets very useful. And either they make a deal with OpenAI as well, or they try to build something in house or make a deal with Google or another person. Since Microsoft has the deal with OpenAI. But yeah, I think that's the mass adopter. Once it gets on an iPhone and Apple devices, it's off to the races there.
Yeah.
So
I think
we'll see.
yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I think that's gonna be the next race too, is like what mobile conglomerate or device or whatever is the one that's gonna be able to roll it out successfully and do it well. I kind of feel like I have my money on Google, just because they have DeepMind, they have their own training thing, they have an insane amount of data. The funny thing is Microsoft, who they scrapped all their mobile devices for the most part, now has control of OpenAI to some extent, or some partnership deals. So I don't know, but iPhone, Apple, like I'm sure they'll come out with something really good 5 years from now or something, and or they'll just do some third party tool that you can download app-wise or something. But yeah, it'll be very interesting when that comes out, because personally I don't use Siri. Siri's just not helpful for me. I find it, I get more frustrated and pissed off where I'm like, dude, never mind, I'll just Google it. But if I had Chat GPT on it where it could recognize audio, I'd probably be using that thing all the time.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, the only thing I use Siri for is to set timers. That's the only thing I've actually used it for in the last like 2 years is to set a timer when I'm cooking something, and it's relatively good at that. So it's good there. But yeah, let's put a pin in it there. I know we actually have a call in 5 minutes that we gotta hop on. But I think we covered a lot of good stuff today. Glad to be back. As always, guys, Talk News is now on Spotify. It's now on Apple Podcasts, everywhere you can listen to podcasts. So if you're watching us on social or on YouTube, go to your favorite podcast listener, go subscribe. We'd love a at least a 4, but ideally a 5-star review. If you feel like you got to be, give us some scrutiny, give us a 4. But I think 5 should be what you give us. Give us a nice review. Like and follow us on social. We have all the information in the description there. And we will see you all same time, same place next week. Thanks, guys.
Sounds good. See you later.